Just a few more questions on the transfer station, if you.
Would you state your name for the
Oh, Robert
record?
Thompson. Okay, are we gonna store the tires over there? I know it's not a question answer right now, but, and that will hold water, attract mosquitoes, I'm sure. Are you gonna offer, any kind of, like a tax decrease for the property owners over there? 'Cause I know myself, I wouldn't wanna buy a house if they wanted to sell it next to a transfer station. There were a couple other ones I was going to ask, and I forgot now. Let's see.
Mr. Berry, would you like to answer that, or?
Yes, Mayor.
And how long do we have, not to interrupt Scott, sorry, but how long do we have before you actually break ground? I've had people, and quite a few, approach me about a petition. So we'd like to know.
So you'd like to know about the tires, you'd like to know about the taxes,
Yeah.
and you'd like to know the time
Yeah,
that we're gonna
to
break ground.
Yeah.
Mayor, Commission, interested citizens, in regard to tires, I think that we have to realize that we're transitioning from a time when tires were routinely landfilled, and then that became a problem. And a tire requires a lot of airspace in a landfill, so there became a prohibition on landfilling tires. And so the question then was, we're not going to landfill tires, we're going to accept them, and we're going to store them, and we're going to do something with them. And the strategy on what to do with tires has never been very clear. And so it's been a problem in Raton, it's been a problem everywhere. And you can see it on the news, the problem is reported, it's in Albuquerque, it's in various places. There was a big problem a few years ago in Wagon Mound with scrap tires. And this is society's problem. I would say this, if you eat food, you have contributed to the scrap tire problem. Any good or product or service that we as consumers use, it requires a transportation system where scrap tires are generated. We don't think about that much. We get a new set of tires, and the old tires just go somewhere. And that's a problem that we have to address. And so if you go to our convenience center today, you see a big pile of scrap tires. And essentially, Raton has gone through a process where the city just becomes a middleman for tires. And that's not a good system. And so we need to look at that. And I would tell you as well is that the city is subsidizing this tire problem that we have. It's not the city of Raton problem, it's all of our problem, and we're subsidizing that. The solid waste ratepayers of Raton are paying extra to get rid of these tires. So that's a situation that we need to correct. So it's not a convenience center issue. It's not a transfer station problem. It's a problem in our ordinance on how we handle tires. And we need to bring an ordinance in front of the commission and in front of the public and decide how are we going to manage scrap tires in the future. And there has to be a change, I would suggest, to the commission and to the public from what we do right now. So I would think of it in those terms. If you look at it now, you would say, that's not something that I want closer to town, and it's certainly not something that I or the rest of the staff here would want in town. We need to acknowledge that we have an issue right now, manage that issue. It's going to cost some money to do that, and then figure out what our issue is and correct that. And we're going to do that through an ordinance. So it's our plan to bring that ordinance to the commission to consider, as well as other things. And we said at the beginning, this is a multi-step process of modernizing our solid waste system in Raton. We've got a very antiquated system, and we need to modernize it from the top to the bottom, every step of it. And that's another step. And we've taken steps one at a time, and it's happened over a period of time, over several years. Tires is another step that we need to address, and that's something that we need to do. I would say the time to do that is coming up fairly quickly. So that's how I would answer the tire issue is how we manage tires needs to change. And it's not going to be a system where simply tires are delivered to the city of Raton and we don't have a place to go with them. That's not an answer. So outside of the discussion of the convenience center, let's come up with a management strategy for tires, and we're ready to present that to the commission. We need to put that together, and we hope to bring that to the commission pretty soon. So we'll look at that. We'll have a lot more discussion on tires, and I think there will be plenty of opportunity for public input on how we manage tires, and the burden needs to shift is the bottom line to that. As far as tax breaks, I guess Mr. Thompson is talking of property tax, and I guess I would state that the city of Raton generally survives on gross receipts tax. There is a small increment of property tax, but property tax is largely an issue of Colfax County, and Mr. Thompson, as an employee of Colfax County, I think would realize that the county really controls the property tax, and the state of New Mexico does. And I don't imagine it seems like more of a rhetorical question than a legitimate question, so I really don't have guidance on what would happen with property tax, so I'll let that kind of stay there. And as far as the schedule, I think the schedule looks like this. We would complete the purchase of the building. Building would be delivered to Raton in 8 to 10 weeks. In that time, we would try to prepare a registration package for New Mexico Environment Department and a package for request of bids for construction of the facility. Construction of the facility, I would guess, would take about 6 months, and we would generally look at between January 1st of 2018 and March of 2018 as a date when the facility is ready to commence operations.
Okay. Did that answer your questions?
Might I intercede something here? I've had a few calls about this too, and the main problem is that we have not set anything in stone, and we've been saying this over the last 4 meetings that we've advertised that this could happen, and the people are relying on rumors and coffee house clutches, but come and ask the people that are working on it. It's not going to be a trash dump in the middle of your yard, and this is what a lot of the people are saying. We're going to do this and this and this, and it hasn't been decided exactly. We still have the possibility that we could move it to another location, but at this time we've authorized the city manager to order the building and to start towards this. But we have not closed it, and we're going to have a big city-wide information so that people can see and know exactly what it's going to be. So that's all I have to say.
Oh, that's fine. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission at this time? If not, we'll go on with our business. Approval of the April 25th regular commission meeting minutes, the May 2nd special commission meeting minutes, and the March 17th City of Raton strategic planning session minutes.
Madam Mayor, the city clerk made the corrections that were on there, and I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of April 25th, a regular meeting, May 2nd, special commission meeting minutes, and March 17th, City of Raton strategic planning session minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Deliberate and act on an event application from the independent riders for the annual Run for the Wall passing.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is, again, our application for the annual event that we put in for Run for the Wall. They'll be coming in and gassing up at the Alta station there on Clayton Road, at the south end of town. One of the things that we want to do a little different this year than we did last year on it is during the brief time that they're staging, which would be probably 30 minutes max, we would like to be able to close Clayton Road from Main Street to where the service station is, because they're going to be utilizing at least 3 lanes in there to stage the motorcycles in there. We tried to allow two-way traffic on that road last year, and it ended up with the police officers shutting it down completely because it just got too crazy. You've got people that just don't understand. You can't take cars and try to cut them across through those bikes. And we've got people walking in through there. So we figured the best, safest way is just to kind of close that off for that time. I don't think it'll be over much, about 30 minutes maximum. They're only going to give us a total of 45 minutes while they're in town. They're running on a pretty tight schedule. So that'd be really the only change from what we've done in the past. But I believe it'd be the safest way to go. I had a talk earlier today with Raton Fire Chief to let him know what we were looking at, and he seemed to be in kind of concurrence with it at that point. We will have people manning the barricades, and we would ask for barricades from the city, but we will have people manning those. The District 8 volunteers are going to be out in force, and should anybody from public safety need to get through for any reason, they'll be able to drop those barricades, let them through, and get them back up. So we've kind of looked at all the major contingencies, I think, on this. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer, or we'd appreciate your approval.
The total number of bikes coming through this year?
They
At the
had
last count?
522 registered as of 2 weeks ago. They'll lose some coming here, they'll gain some, so we're planning on at least 500 this year. It's going to be a large crowd. So again, we really want to be careful how we manage them.
Make a motion to approve the application for the independent riders for the annual Run for the Wall passing.
I'll second.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Barry has a
Mr. Berry.
Mayor's comment, I would just point out to the commission that this is a U.S. highway. It's not under the control of the city of Raton, and typically you would have a permit from New Mexico DOT in order to close either Clayton Road or 2nd Street. I think it's a good idea. Definitely can see the safety concern. I would just point out that this is not a city of Raton controlled route.
Okay.
Understand that.
So do they need to go get that from elsewhere?
I would say there's probably not time to get what you need from DOT, and they would require an extensive submittal to them. And then, in our experience, and we have done this some on 2nd Street, maybe up to a month for them to, they would grant that. But I think you have to really do some planning in advance to do that kind of a thing. I don't know if the sheriff could kind of help city police in traffic control. I think that makes sense. We can do that. Certainly makes sense.
Certainly, we
But-
plan on having mounted patrol and the sheriff's department
Yeah.
involved in it. Yes.
Yeah, it's just, that's really not, our place to say, we're gonna close the US
Yeah,
highway.
because
Okay.
we don't have the authority to do that. With that understood, we have a motion and a second to approve the event application for the independent riders for the annual Run for the Wall passing. And I think we're still okay with what they presented us with. I can't read the street closures. I tried to figure out what they were.
Well, Mayor, I would definitely say that all City of Raton resources will, do everything we can to ensure the safety of the event. We're aware of it, and police, fire, ambulance, and public works, we will definitely put our full resources on it. It's an important event to the city. Certainly safety is an issue here, and we'll be on board with the event.
Very good.
And just remember for next year, to get a hold of the state.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing the event. We have C, D, and E, which are all funding requests from various nonprofits. I would like to postpone these funding requests until we have completed the audit. The audit, I mean, the
Budget?
the budget.
Okay. Say, that's gonna be a long wait.
Budget. So we know exactly how much money we have and what, where we can use it.
Yeah, I think, Mayor, from the staff perspective, we'd like to get some indication of, what your thinking is as far as preparing the budget in these particular requests.
Here is a draft of the lodger's tax non-promo fund. So when we talked about this last week, we had not updated those pages. So we can go over this and give you a little bit of an indication of how much funding we think will be available to help you make these decisions on these funding requests. So we've estimated that the beginning cash balance in the non-promo fund will be about $55,000, which is merely just an estimate. We won't have the actual cash balances determined until July. But I have gone through and I've updated all of the line items for what we do know as of today. And I've made a note that we did talk in our budget discussions about including some funding for upgrades to the mechanical room at the convention center. So I think we have enough money budgeted in that line item to potentially handle anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 for those upgrades. And then I've updated the audit expense and some of the other known expenses that we have. So I've highlighted for you kind of the line items that you would need to make a recommendation on. And then I've also, you'll see on the last page of the budget, I've left the Main Street was awarded $34,000 this year. I've left it at $34,000. They are requesting an increase, so that would be a line item that you would need to adjust if you allocate them additional funds. Just another note, we are estimating total lodger's tax revenues for the fiscal year of $360,000. So in the past, our Main Street funding does not exceed 10% of that estimate. So I made a note there for you. And I also noted that we do pay Main Street out of the general fund. It's a transfer out of non-promo to the general fund. And then we have a line item for the Main Street contract. And it's on page 5 of your budget. So with all of those assumptions and not including the 3 requests that you've received tonight, we're showing an estimated ending cash balance of $106,458. You'll see on the adding machine tape that I've attached, if you were to give them the amounts that they're requesting, that leaves an estimated ending cash balance of roughly $13,000. So that doesn't leave you a lot of cushion if our projections come in lower than anticipated. But to support that $360,000 annual revenue, I've also given you a handout that shows the, I think it's 6-year history of our lodger's tax collections. So you also have that to support that projection. So hopefully this helps you with the funding requests that you have before you this evening.
Mayor and Commission, this might be a good time to bring this up as well. It's not something I've talked to Michael Ann about in some detail, but it's been kind of a busy week. But as far as the 4th of July, the fireworks, and Chief Matthews and I have talked about that. We're kind of looking for some guidance from the Commission as far as budgeting, whether you'd like to kind of stay at the level that we're at. We have got a couple of proposals to increase the show with some additional cost. And Chief, I don't know if you're prepared to talk about that, but we're just looking for a little guidance if you'd like to maybe step up the show a little bit.
So
or
keep in mind,
kinda
in
maintain a little-
addition to the funds that we take out of lodger's tax, we do have the charity fund in our trust and agency, and those are the donations that we do receive, and those range from 3,000 to 4,000 a year. So you would have those funds plus the 14,000 that we've budgeted
Right.
in this
And
budget.
we're coming up closer than we would like to think on 4th of July. We do need to get a order in. We received 3 quotes. One would be for the same size show that we had last year, and I'm going off memory here right now, but that was somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000, if I recall. We stepped it up just a little bit, probably about an additional 5 to 10 minutes of airtime for an additional, I believe it was $1,200. And then, of course, we went for the granddaddy of all, computers synchronized with music and burst timing with the music. That was way up there, about $30,000, but it is an option for you. But we do need to make a decision probably by the end of this month to get our order in time to receive the fireworks by the 4th.
And so you still have time to make a decision, but I don't know if you could, provide a little guidance on where you want to go with that.
So what was the middle one that you suggested?
In the neighborhood of 12 or 11.5 rather.
11.5, and that just gives like 10 more minutes of,
5 to 10 more minutes, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Got some guidance right now?
Yeah, you have time to consider
Sure,
that.
we'll
Now, I did
consider it.
ask the 3 entities to submit something for tonight's meeting, and they're present
have.
to answer any questions that you might have. And certainly, you have time for consideration.
Well, I appreciate the entities being here tonight,
I do.
but I like to, just said I would like, after getting this, I would like to take a moment and look at it. I know that they came out tonight, but I would like to look this over a little more myself.
And I would like to see some money set aside for some additional projects. I think we need an awning over the horseshoe pits for shade and for weather protection. Some kind of a, I don't know what they call them, cell flags or whatever they call those things. There's one behind the Head Start building that I think would probably be comparable, and I have no idea what it cost. And then Jared had talked about $6,000 worth of sand to do a sandlot volleyball court. And if he did tournaments, it would qualify for lodger's tax.
Well, I'd like to see his proposals of what this is gonna be too before we act on it. So,
I think the groups are prepared to address the commission, and if you'd like to exchange information tonight, I don't know that, that precludes you from taking the time that you need, but I think the groups are present and are prepared to address the commission
Okay.
today.
Yeah,
I would like to hear what they have to say.
The first one that's in my packet would be the Raton Main Street.
Seems like I've been seeing you guys a lot lately. Mayor, Commissioners, I submitted a letter just explaining our request, and I think you're all very familiar with our mission and our purpose as being an organization, with the city of Raton. We probably are one of the organizations that has a more formal memorandum of understanding because, we are under state New Mexico Main Street, which is under the national New Mexico Main Street. So, as being part of an organization in a community, and the MOU, it is expected that the city contribute monetarily to the organization. For our size of community in the MOU, it does say that there should be a minimum of 35,000 contributed to the organization. The other thing that I would like to bring to your attention is we are also an arts and cultural district, which in many communities has two separate directors. So you're paying two separate salaries for those people. And with Brenda multitasking the way she does, we're kind of getting 2 for 1. And so that's why we were asking, you're actually getting 3 for 1 because you're going to have arts and humanities later. But that was one of the, reasons I was asking for the increase, is because we are performing 2 functions under one canopy as Raton Main Street. I think your return on investment to Raton Main Street is huge. We came into existence in 2005, and in that amount of time, we have brought, over $10 million in various services and projects to the city, and we're able to accomplish a lot of things like the multimodal. We're currently looking for over $1 million for the Great Blocks improvements. We've done the master plan and the update to the master plan, and we've received money for the Schuler, and there's just various things. I think your return on investment is very good with our organization. And I'll be glad to answer any other questions you might have.
I have no questions. Your letter explained it.
Thank you for your consideration.
Arts and humanities?
Mayor, Commissioners, I thought Brenda was going to stay, but she snuck out on me. We have another meeting we both need to be at, but as you can see, we're asking for $18,000. Last year, we did come to the commission, asked for $18,000. We did receive 9 from you. We do appreciate that. And some of your requests that you did have last year, whether we could, we did eliminate 1 employee, a part-time employee, and we have filled all those slots with volunteers. Still, it's tough with the Raton's economy right now. Our funding for our shows has been cut about 50%. Some of the foundations that would fund us at 100% now are no longer at least funding our shows. So that's going to cut into our operations cost. And along with the fact that that Main Street and the Raton Arts and Humanities Council actually are one, in a sense, kind of one and the same. We kind of overlap each other with everything we do. All of our shows that we do bring to town are, I think they do. We had a group came in from La Junta. It was about 40 people that came in to Raton. They had dinner here, and hopefully they enjoyed our show. I think the other night we had several people from Trinidad that came over and had dinner here also, and came to our last show of the season. So I do believe that we do bring money into town with everything every time we do something. All I'm doing at this point is just asking for your support and anything you all might be able to do for us. And any questions you might have. I know last year all the finances, we give that stuff to you monthly to let you know where we're at as far as our finances, and we try to be upfront about where we're at. So
I wish we'd see them. I wish they'd come to us.
Yeah, so do I. Anything else?
Yeah, since I haven't seen your financial statements, I'd like to ask, and I should have asked Main Street also, what are you doing to raise money to support yourself?
Well, part of it is through what we sell in shows. What the percentage that we get for artist sales is the other part, and then we always have a campaign of trying to and I can't think of what membership campaign. And so we're always pushing membership. And since Brenda's been our executive director, our membership has come up substantially. But last year it was down a little bit. Just not. Those people that would support us are passing away.
Mm-hmm. Or moving away.
Are moving away. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to appeal to a younger audience, and try to diversify our shows a little bit, where it's not as many operas and maybe something that the young kids will enjoy. So That's how we're trying to do it with by just changing what we're bringing in. We're doing a lot more. We still do the show with the kids in January. It's nothing but a kids show, and I mean that brings no money into the council, but it's something that we enjoy doing. We buy I think one of the banks did purchase all the ribbons and did provide all of the prize money. Matter of fact, I think it was Diana's bank that did that, so we appreciate that. But that's the main thing we do to support ourselves is through our membership campaign and our artist sales. Really.
And are you still getting grants from like McCune?
No, we haven't gotten a McCune grant in years. We're getting some money from Macron. We get a little money this year. We got half of the money that we normally would from Whited. When Mr. Darden was alive, he understood that it costs money to operate. So we'd say, okay, Mr. Darden, will you back this show? And he would, and he'd say, okay, and I'm going to give you another 10% because I know you have advertising, you have everything else on top of that. And that stuff we don't get that anymore. It's just if the show's $7,500, we might get 7,000 of it. We got to make it up someplace else.
Right, exactly. I know you used to get a grant to pay for your executive director. That no longer.
We get about $6,000 from New Mexico Arts. We get the most probably in the state as far as grants from New Mexico Arts, but it's about $6,000, so it's pretty minimal also actually.
So all the other grants have
Right.
sort of dried up.
And we're always looking for other ideas, other money. We're always out there beating the bushes trying to figure out a way to make more money, and it just it's tough right now.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You bet.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said last year we gave you 9,000, is that correct?
That's what we requested $1,800 a month is what we requested, and we received $900 a month. And I don't think it was an entire year. I think it was probably about. Do you all remember for sure? I don't remember when we came in, but I don't believe it was this year, early in the year.
Right.
No, it wasn't this early.
It was. I'm guessing it was probably probably June or July when we came in. So it was after the budget year. I know that.
Right, it was,
I have to say you guys do a really, really great job, and I appreciate everything you do. Is there a way to utilize, especially more local musicians, and that might
Well,
cost less
maybe
to bring
we could do something maybe at another show that would maybe showcase local musicians.
Right.
I think the whole idea behind I really felt behind the Arts Council is we're bringing in acts that people would not be able to see anywhere else.
And that does happen. I mean, I've seen things here that
Right.
I never got to see when I lived in Berkeley,
Right.
California, or
Right.
So, and so that's obviously happening, but I think it might be beneficial for you to come
Well,
up with a way.
it's something we have a board meeting on Monday, and
Right.
that's something I'll bring up at the board meeting. I think the training we had today, it was that was something we as an organization looked at beating around. It brings no money to us, those
Right.
kind of things. But doing some outdoor events maybe and sponsoring outdoor events with local artists, local musicians. Growing up as a musician in Raton, I always had someplace I could play.
And those places are
Yeah,
disappearing.
the kids don't have those opportunities I have, so, that's something that's, and there's been a lot of good talent to come out of this
Right.
community. And so I think, there's still a lot out there that's unrecognized, I guess, about the best way to put it.
Right.
So that's something I'll
So
bring up.
I'd appreciate you guys
Okay,
making
that's
that
something-
consideration.
That'd be something we look at, and maybe, and even if we did it at a reduced, we could do something at a reduced price,
Exactly.
to get people in the door and get some of that talent out there.
Lindy, they've received $8,624.97 to date. That is through March.
Okey doke. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to answer your question as far as what we do to raise money for ourselves. We do have our Friends of Main Street Drive. And so this year, so far, we were between 2,500 and 3,000. We do have our Hops and Vine, which is a Main Street fundraiser event specifically because, you know, all the grant monies are specific to what we write the grant for, and they're not for operational expenses. We're looking at doing an Oktoberfest to do another fundraiser. And just like Raton Arts and Humanities Council, our whited money that we usually get was 50% of what we normally get. Some other expenses that we have as an organization and being a Main Street organization are, we have to go to quarterly meetings, and most of those are out of town, and those are on our dime. And we did not send Brenda to the national conference this year, but she does have to go at least every other year. So next year we're looking, I mean, that's a few $1,000s to spend a week. This year it was in Pittsburgh. I'm not quite sure where it's gonna be next year. But, you know, so those are monies that we raise outside of the money that the city gives us for those kinds of expenses. And, you know, travel, we have to pay her travel and all of that. So those are some of the things that we do to raise money. The events that we organize, such as the Balloon Rally and the Gate City Music Festival, if there's any seed money left over, we put that in a separate account for the next year's event. We do take 20% of that profit, if there is a profit, to supplement our budget for the time that our staff and our volunteers put into organization of the event. So those are some of the ways that we try to raise money for our organization.
I think you just told me 5 events.
We do have a lot of events.
Yeah, I mean, 5 events that you bring in, take in money for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And you
the
need to pay
balloon-
gross receipts on that.
The
then.
balloon rally is its own, we took that from the chamber. And then we have the Gate City Music Festival, which we were asked by the city to do, and we're in our 3rd year of that. And so those are the 2 that kind of have seed money that just sits there.
It
for the
doesn't make
next
any
year.
difference to the state. It's not on profit. It's on
Yeah.
your ticket sales.
And we'll have to talk to our accountant. I don't know what the other events I mentioned were that we brought in income. The Hops and Vine.
Hops and Vines, and if you do the Oktoberfest, and you said Gate City Music, the Balloon Rally, and I forget what the other,
That's it.
there was another one. I know there was 5 anyway. Doesn't make any difference.
Friends of Main Street, that's.
No, that's dues.
Okay,
That's something
yeah.
totally different.
Yeah.
But there is a law on the books.
Okay, we'll look at it. We have an accountant, so we'll check with her, but anyhow, that's how we try to raise money outside of what we ask the city for, to fund other expenses. Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
The Raton Museum,
Madam Mayor, Commission, you were given the opportunity, I hope, to review our proposal. There are financials that are in the packet for you, and it's from last fiscal year. So it does show you where we have acquired additional monies for funding and what our expenses go for. So as far as programming, we have offered a lot of different shows, not only last year, but again, I provided you with a list of what we're going to be doing this year. We had individual speakers, one being Baldwin Burr, who did Ernie Pyle, which was well received. He and additional family members from back east stayed here several times, so, you know, or during that presentation that evening and the night afterwards, so that they would be able to enjoy the area and spend some time together as a reunion type thing. And, you know, as far as heads and beds, which I know are issues for lodgers tax, you know, our presenters do spend the night if they come from outside of the community, and often bring family members. But I think the biggest key is we offer a year-round venue for those that are staying in the community and taking the opportunity to enjoy the other assets around here and visit the museum. So it's a opportunity for them to be able to use another facility and learn about the history of Raton. We don't necessarily bring a lot of people here because of the museum, but I think they're here and they take the opportunity to visit it. We have a lot of people that are traveling via train that have 5 hours and spend a lot of time at the museum. They come in, they learn about our area and the history and what we have to offer. And I think a lot of them end up coming back when they're not necessarily traveling via train. So it's an opportunity for us to help educate the traveling public as well as those within the area about our history and other assets. Our website links to all the museums within northeastern New Mexico and other assets, NRA and Capulan Mountain and other, state parks and city parks or national parks that we have in the area. So we encourage the promotion of tourism and people to stay here. The front cover I offered for you guys to be able to see. I mean, it was fun to do. It was great. And it advertised, the city approached us if we would be willing to design the Your Host, right? And write the main story for promotion of Raton. And it was a lot of fun to do, and we did that. And I think it was reflected well on our community and hopefully brought a lot of people in as well.
Kathy, I don't have your proposal in front of me.
Oh.
How much, I left it at home.
Oh, okay.
How much money are you asking for?
We asked for 35,000.
35?
Kath,
Yes.
looking at your financials and that,
Mhm.
donations, 59,727. Is that just donations from people coming in, or?
No, actually,
Or-
that's really out of the ordinary. It's not a normal type amount that we get. There was an estate, and that estate left money for the Raton Museum, so those were proceeds from that estate.
Are you guys charging any admission?
We are,
admission fee?
and we had that discussion last year
Right.
when we did that. And I didn't provide this current year's fiscal year information, but we started June of last year charging for admission, which is $5 for anyone 18 and older. So if you're
Okay.
a student or a child, then there's no fee. And then for group rates, it depends on the group.
Sure.
And we go accordingly. Admission fees since July of last year through March was $2,115. And it's kind of been something that we're still gonna try to evaluate. There have been visitors that have walked in, seen that there was a charge and decided not to come in. I mean, what that percentage, you can kind of
See
play
if
with it.
$2,000
Yeah.
is worth it, yeah.
So we'll kind of reevaluate that and look and see if, I think it's important, to have a fee for people to be able to come in, but you don't want to exclude those that are truly interested in, if it's a family and the kids want to come in and dad said, no, I'm not going to pay $5 for me, so they end up walking down the street. Well, that's unfortunate because you didn't grab the youth at that point that were interested in coming in. But so there's pros and cons to it at this point. We're still trying to wrap our heads around it. Funding to date through our different, whether it's donations that are normal donations or membership dues, is I think total to date, and including lodger's tax that we received, is $27,172 is the amount that we've received to date. So that's more in line with what our normal income is. If there's any other questions, or if you would like for me to address some, things prior to making your decision, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to do that. Just as a side note, we are going to be opening the gallery with a summer show that's called Celebrate History. And it's of parades and fairs and a lot of different events that took place over a period of, our existence. And it's going to be a really fun photographic show. And I don't know how many of you remember that Raton was the premier place for the movie Raton Pass. So we're looking to do that as a fundraiser. We do have a copy of it. We showed it several years ago. And it'll be fun to kind of play up on that and do some quirky things, because it is a pretty quirky movie, so it'll be a lot of fun to do.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate the funding that you do provide and hope that you see that we're a valuable asset to the community and to the downtown revitalization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make one quick change to the information that I provided you. If you go to page 50 where I have the adding machine tape, because I've already included the 34,000 that Main Street currently gets in the budgeted line items, if we just put what the additional is that they're requesting, instead of 40,000, it should be 6,000. And then that adds up to 59,000 total. And if I subtract that from my estimated ending cash balance, the 59,000, that actually gives you an estimated 47,458 as an ending cash balance if you were to fully fund all of their requests. So I didn't want to double count that 34,000
Right.
because I already have it in there. So does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, I don't want to confuse you. And I just caught that when I was sitting there reviewing it. So.
What you don't have included in there, Michael Ann, is the Schuler Management contract for 15.
It's right above the highlighted area for the
No,
museum.
I mean in your tape. I mean in the tape is what I was
Well, I've
saying.
already included it in the budget.
Oh, okay, this
Yeah.
is what you haven't included in the budget. I understand.
Yeah, but it is in the line item right above museum
Yeah, I get to see it.
expense. So. Okay. So hopefully I didn't confuse everybody, but I just wanted to kind of give you some useful information so that you kind of know where we're projecting that we would be at the end of the fiscal year if you were to fully fund these requests. Is there any other
You have,
questions?
off the top of your head, other requests that come throughout the year for non-promo? A rough estimate?
Well, we had the rodeo
Yeah.
last meeting.
But not to come at a
That
non-promotional.
was,
Other than the ones that the mayor brought up about the sand for the volleyball court and special projects for the horseshoe pits, I mean, that would be stuff that you would have to consider coming out of the non-promo. Can you think of anything else, Scott, that we would get?
Well, we had,
And the increased funding for the fireworks.
right.
yeah, we had planned on budgeting and asking the commission to approve non-promotional funding for a monument sign in 2017, and then.
Now, I did include
That's
that.
included.
Right, so
Yeah.
that's,
So,
that's one thing that's atypical, it's not in last year's budget. And, I think we need a minimum of 3 of those, and so, again, we're proposing to do 1 in 2017, but we could talk about the schedule on that, and we could do 2 in 2017, or 2 additional ones in 18, or 1 a year, or something like that, but I think we really strategize what we want on the south interchange, and, what we want on the north entrance into Raton. So we're proposing that we do a monument sign on 6487 Clayton Road this year.
This year.
And so you see that in there.
so I've plugged in 15,000. I don't know if
Right.
that's.
Yeah, we haven't
I don't know either.
got very far with that yet, so that'll be the established budget. But I think that in addition, We had talked about maybe this pavilion at the multimodal at some point in the future, and that was
Right.
something that was cut from the project because of cost. It was an extraordinary cost on that in the bid, so it was removed. And that's certainly not something we're looking at in 2017, but in future years, coming back with that gazebo structure. And you can see the concrete there was set up for that, and it's something I think we want to get back to. And then we talked about the depot, and we have a little bit of money to start with the depot if we can get everything falls into place. But going forward, how we fund the depot, and we're really looking at just trying to figure out what the scope of work is for the depot, a scope and an estimated cost. So we don't even know what kind of dollars we're talking about yet. So that would be in a future year, and lodger's tax could provide a match and go out and try to find some kind of grant money. And so we're not at that point of talking about that at this point, but those are things that we had talked about. And then in addition, making improvements to the convention center and the visitor center would be something we would bring to you in the future. That would probably be a bigger item that we would finance and again back up with non-promotional lodger's tax. And we've talked about this before. We did end the debt service on the visitor center that's gone on since '98. So we would accrue some of those in the meantime while we're putting this preliminary engineering report together on convention center and on the visitor center. And I would tell you that I attended the Lions convention down there, a number of you did, and we could see some of the weaknesses of our convention center for use of a convention. Our sound system, not very good, and that's something that we need to talk about if we're going to promote more conventions like the Lions. And all in all, it was a great convention, and a lot of people staying in town, over several nights. So a great business in town, but the climate control in our convention center was another thing that was a bit of an issue at that convention. So those are things that we want to talk about improving if we're going to be bringing conventions.
Right.
So those are things that we would see in there, not necessarily in the current budget, but probably plan for in future years.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, deliberate and act. Well, I guess, do you guys want to go ahead and vote on this? Do you want to table it? What do you want to do?
I'd make a motion that we would table this until the next meeting of May 23rd, when we have a better handle of what we've got with our budget. So I'll make a motion that we table until May 23rd.
I think that's a postponement. but
Postponement,
It's
yes.
yeah.
Hey, you're right.
Just technicality.
Just technicality.
So would the motion to postpone C, D, and E?
Yes.
C, D, and E, exactly.
I'll second that. I
Okay.
want some more.
We have a motion and a second to postpone the deliberation on funding for Raton Main Street, Raton Arts Council, Raton Museum until the May 23rd meeting, 2017. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Schuster?
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo?
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez?
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Sagata?
Yes.
Mayor Matz?
Yes. Deliberate and act on City of Raton health insurance coverage for fiscal year 18.
Before we go on with this, can I intercede one thing here? We have some people here that are here for the liquor license that have been sitting here. Do you think we could move ahead to item L and M?
I don't have a problem with it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're going to go to number L.
Was there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
There was a second, but I don't even know who did it.
Ronnie made the motion. Did you second?
No,
I'll just put me down.
it's a good idea. I voted for it.
It's a public hearing for Lowe's Super Save application for a dispenser liquor license. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item on the agenda, since it's a public hearing. Just state your name for the record.
My name is Larry Gallegos, an area manager for the Lowe's, mayor and commissioners. We just was wanting to apply for the license and are wanting to become part of the community, and we've started the remodeling of the store and wanted to just be a good business partner with the city of Raton. And this is what we are trying to do, and we'd like to see if we can receive the license and what the commission and the mayor would like to see us do or change in the process of what we're doing.
Everything seems to be in order on the application, so.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this issue? Okay.
Mayor, I make a motion that we we approve the application for a dispenser liquor license for Lowe's Super Save.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the application for a dispenser liquor license for Lowe's Super Save. And I agree with you, Mr. Chavez. I believe everything is in order. We have the letter from the state. We have the transfer application and all the other information that is needed.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not to question whether it's a good idea or not, it's just a question. You're getting this license from the Pioneer, correct? Which was package and on-site sales, correct?
Yes.
So what happens, I mean, you'll be doing package sales of liquor. What happens to the other part of that license?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But did you want
Somebody
it?
asked me and I have no idea.
Did you want it?
No, but I just wondered. And I think, I don't think I'm the only one who wonders where
Sure.
that goes.
Sure.
Do you know Chief Matthews?
Pardon?
Pardon?
I think it stays
No, I
as
think
the
it's just
same
a-
license.
It's
but
one
they're
license.
just gonna use it for package, that's it.
Yeah, so that's what I was told.
Okay.
It's one package, we're just using the.
Right.
Okay, you can do either or both,
Right,
or, but you're only doing one. Okay.
Okay.
The reason I wanted them to get ahead, because I was out there today, and all three of these people that I saw, they moved, they worked all day long, and so, I know they're sitting here, so.
Thank you.
Just remember, if you have any extra that you're gonna throw away, just throw it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Did we vote on that?
No, we did
No,
not.
not
Well,
yet.
we better vote on it, I think, huh? We have a motion, I believe, and a second,
Yes.
to approve the application for the dispenser liquor license for Lowe's Super Save. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for coming.
And Mayor, if I could just state, I'd just like to say to Lowe's, welcome to Raton. We're glad to have you here. We're thankful that you're here, so thanks for coming and welcome to Raton.
Thank you. We appreciate it, sir.
One other comment too, are you gonna give us maps to where everything is now?
We're actually in the process today. We sent in to order all the new aisle markers.
Cool.
Oh,
That'll
okay.
get the direction going a little bit easier. in the
All
store.
right.
But yeah, no, we're in the process. That'll be a fully carpeted store. It'll be a state-of-the-art store when we're finished with it.
Cool.
Okay,
Good,
nice.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went today and got some Pampers, and to get some bread, and I ended up with Pampers.
Oh.
So they moved it.
Yeah, they did move all the bread.
Thank you.
Bob came home and told me anyway. Okay. Oh, yeah, we had a lot of people. Deliberate and act on City of Raton health insurance coverage fiscal year 2018. Mr. Berry?
Mayor and Commission, in past years, and this has happened for a while, the city has conducted its open enrollment in the fall, I think in September, and so there was a lot of speculation when we got to preparing the budget as to what health insurance costs would be, and then we would find out later after we had approved the budget. So we did take some steps this year to try to coincide with the budget process. So you know when you approve the budget, what that might be. And I would also add that some years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, the city was part of a pool that's the state insurance plan, and it consists mostly of state government, but other public agencies are part of that pool. And it looked like at the time that there would be a large increase there, and the city did look for other options and did choose to exit the state pool and go a different way. And so the city of Raton now, the staff has a committee that for the past couple of years has looked at health insurance options and vetted some of those options. And the committee had worked on this up to today. So you have a memorandum on your desk which has some of the information. And there's a recommendation from the committee. And committee representatives include Raton Waterworks, Raton Public Service, Raton Housing Authority, and the city of Raton. And what we're looking at is our present provider, and this is outlined in your memo. Cigna is proposing a 9.9% increase in premiums, and that comes out to a little more than $71,000 that would be cost in the upcoming fiscal year, and that would take effect July 1st. So the city of Raton and the utilities and housing authority did inquire as to the city being accepted back into the state insurance plan, and they said that yes, they would accept the city back in the plan. We've exchanged some information past couple of weeks, and they had proposed an increase that in the aggregate is 2.9%. And there's a difference on some of the classifications of employees depending on dependents, I believe. And so you can see that that's an increase of a little under $21,000. So I think the other thing I'd like to point out is that there are a couple of options with the state plan. There's a recommendation from the committee to join the state plan and change from the present Cigna provider. And I think the committee was unanimous in bringing that recommendation to the commission. And there is a basic plan, which we're talking about with the 2.9% increase. There are several options that are more expensive, and the bigger reason why is an expanded network. We likely would have some employees that may want that expanded network, because then you might go to a doctor in Colorado, and under the basic plan, it's basically a New Mexico plan. So we would recommend that we would offer the employees an 80% share city, 20% employee for that basic plan. If they wish to have the more expensive plan, the employee would pay the difference. And that's the recommendation of the committee, and I concur with that recommendation to the commission.
Okay. Any questions?
They, Cigna, Mr. Berry, Cigna, I believe, wasn't it originally they were around 12% increase that they, and did they negotiate it down a little bit?
Yeah, no,
they start with that today.
Yeah, no, actually, well, you see on the second sheet, this is highlighted, and so that would essentially, the renewal would equal about a 10% increase.
Okay.
So you see some of the terms of the insurance, fairly comparable. There's some difference in the primary items, deductible, out-of-pocket, and prescription plan, but you can see that they're fairly comparable. I think the biggest one is that the deductible for employees would decrease from $750 to $350. Slightly higher on the out-of-pocket expense, and then the prescription plan is fairly comparable. Michael Ann, I don't know if you have anything to add or if I'm missing some information. Mr. Campbell was on the committee, is both very knowledgeable about the, both proposals, if I'm not covering anything. And if I'm missing something, feel free to jump in.
I would actually say that probably one of the biggest other gains we'd gain going forward would be the strength of the group size of the state plan versus standing on their own and negotiate contracts as a small group of 80-some employees. We joined the state's plan, it's negotiated for all of us as a group. That would be some strength where we're not so dependent on if we had a bad year or some employees that had issues with their families.
And will they break the bill out by, yes. So that'll free up some time for Michael Ann. You get the bill directly, you don't have to pay it to the city.
Yeah, each entity would receive their own.
Yeah, which is a much better deal. Okay.
Well, I'll move that we approve the proposed health insurance coverage for FY 18.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the recommended Raton Health insurance coverage for fiscal year 18, and it's with the state plan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Deliberate and act on fiscal year 17 auditor's recommendation. Mr. Berry?
Mayor and Commission, again, we have a committee, and I'm going to turn this over to Michael Ann in a minute. I'll just give you the highlights. But we have a committee that consists, again, of the City of Raton, Raton Waterworks, and RPS for selection of a independent auditor. And so the committee has met. They have a recommendation for you, as outlined in the memorandum. Michael Ann Antonucci, City Treasurer, is our representative on that committee, and I'll turn it over to Michael Ann to go into some more detail.
Mayor and Commission, as you know, in the past 3 years, we've had the same audit firm. I mean, they've gone through some name changes and mergers, and but we have completed our third year of a 3-year multi-year proposal. So typically, once you complete the third year, you have options to either go out for RFP. Under the changes under the state audit rule that they made recently, an audit firm can do up to 6 consecutive years. I think prior to that it was probably 12, something.
Oh, no, they reduced it to 3. Now they're going back up to 6.
Oh, okay. So, but it's, yeah, it's changed over the years, but now it's at 6 years maximum. So this particular firm would be eligible to do an additional 3 years. We, as a committee, because of time constraints to do an RFP, felt that it was to our advantage to stick with this firm. I believe they have done a good job. It's always difficult to change firms and to even get cooperation with the old firm and the new firm with records and everything. So our recommendation would be to stay with this firm. They did provide us a fairly lengthy proposal, but I did just attach the proposed fees that they did include. So we, because the fees are less than $60,000, we are eligible to just get a quote. And you'll see that they're quoting us for fiscal year 17, $48,398, and they've broken it out based on the estimated hours to do City of Raton, Raton Water, and RPS. Our audit proposed fees also do include the lodger's tax audit. They have made a note, we don't believe, because the threshold on a single audit was raised to $750,000, that we're going to need a single audit in this next fiscal year. We can't really predict in the upcoming fiscal years, but if we did have expenditures exceeding $750,000, we would need to do an amendment to the contract for that year.
Right,
to
and I
add,
assume they'll raise the rate.
to add a single audit. Calculating it out, even 30 hours at $110 per hour still keeps us at the under $60,000. So, what else did I want to say about this? The state audit rule does require that we have a contract in place by May 15th. So we are bringing this recommendation to you this evening so that we can meet that that deadline. And once the state auditor has approved that, then we would get signatures on that contract. Everything's done online, it's paperless now, it really speeds up the process. That was something new last year. So we could potentially have a contract with signatures before the end of May. I don't anticipate that we would start any sort of test work probably in this fiscal year, but probably sometime in August.
In their contract that they sent to you, do they list out the different things that they'll do for the lodger's tax audit?
You know, that's usually done as a separate engagement letter, and that engagement letter, it's probably a 4 or 5 page letter that specifies the scope of the.
Of what they're gonna do?
Yeah, so I mean, I could look back at the proposal and provide you with that page, but it's usually part of that engagement letter that they do.
Because I would like to see added to that lodger's tax audit, an audit that the money has been used correctly by the entities that received it.
We could certainly ask. It's generally an audit of 3 randomly
I know what it is.
chosen
I've done it
lodging-
over the telephone.
Lodging establishments, but yeah, we could check with them to see.
Yeah, because that's the part of the lodger's tax that nobody audits, that nobody looks at. I guess you said the lodger's tax board is supposed to.
Well, the process is that the entity will, make their presentation to the Lodgers Tax Board or to the commission, and the approving body will receive information to satisfy that the money is going to the intended purpose, the purpose that you or the Lodgers Tax Board agree is in compliance with the statute and
Right.
and meets your requirements, and then additional requirement is that entity will report back and give you additional information. And part of that information, and as it was said here tonight, is the metric is heads and beds, and so bring some kind of good data back to both boards that the event or the investment in whatever the promotion was, it was effective. And so I don't know if that's an auditor issue as much as it is really a strategic planning between the commission, the Lodgers Tax Board, and possibly the staff as to what we feel is comfortable in types of uses, either promotional, non-promotional, what's right for contingency, and then are we getting the proper information back? Is this money being applied efficiently? And so I think we all have some responsibility here to, and I think a workshop is in order, where we sit down and we talk about things, because I think that there are probably some uses that bother some members of the Lodgers Tax Board. Certainly the staff doesn't feel comfortable with some of the things that have happened in the past, and I'm hearing that the commission probably has some concerns as well. So
We don't see the documentation.
that's right, and I think that follow through is one of the keys here. And so I think the staff would like to recommend a workshop where we talk about our process in some more detail.
Yeah, I personally do not feel that the Lodgers Tax Board is looking at that side of it. And I might be dead wrong, but I don't think they are. And if not, and if they don't want that responsibility, then perhaps we could give that responsibility to the Finance Advisory Board.
Now, a year ago, well, I would say that the Lodgers Tax Board is structured in accordance with the state statute. The state
Yes, yeah,
statute
I know.
is, does detail out, these are the responsibilities of that board. And so I don't know if we want to go far away from that, but, last year, I think we had a similar kind of discussion, and we did invite an attorney from Municipal League to come up and provide guidance on lodger's tax. And I thought it was good
Unfortunately,
information, but we
The
didn't
Lodgers
have,
Tax Board wasn't
we
there.
didn't have many people. We've had changes on lodger's tax board. We did not have some of the applicants, and they certainly have to have this information too, about legal guidelines for application of lodger's tax. So I think our recommendation is, let's try to do that again. But let's have a strategic workshop here where we evaluate our process.
Okay, that's fine.
That's our recommendation.
All right.
And I think we need to have that really before we finalize this budget. So
Yeah.
we'll probably try to move on that.
The other question I have is, who was on the committee to make the recommendation for the auditor?
It consists of Michael Ann, Geneva Trujillo is the finance person for Raton Waterworks, and Sandy Chav is finance person for Raton Public Service.
Don't you think that's a conflict of interest? The bookkeepers are choosing the auditor to look at their work?
Well, it's a recommendation to the commission, and certainly we'll take any direction that the commission, if the commission sees it that way, we'll certainly change that process up.
I know that's the way it's always been, and I've complained about it every year.
Now, this recommendation, yes, was done by a committee of the three of us. However, when we did do the RFP 3 years ago, our financial advisory committee scored those and made the recommendation to the commission.
Okay,
So,
I think that's more appropriate.
so we did do that,
Mhm.
and that really kind of stemmed from your recommendation that we not be the committee selecting them. We did go this route, like I said, because of time constraints and being under the $60,000 threshold. We thought it was appropriate to just come back and recommend the same firm because they are eligible to do another 3 years.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
I have no
kind of the
problem with
basis
your
for our recommendation.
I don't have any problem with your
Yeah.
recommendation.
Now, when we do an RFP again, no, it will not be me, Geneva, and Sandy scoring those and
And I think that
making
could be
a
said of
recommendation.
anybody on the staff, and so the buck stops here. I mean, it comes to the commission, and certainly we'll follow any process you recommend. We can have a completely unrelated committee to jump into this. I mean, whatever
Well,
your
you
idea
have, you
is.
have a finance committee set up, a
Right.
finance advisory committee set up, and they're independent.
And we can certainly take this to them right now and have them.
Oh, I
do
don't
some
think
We've
that's
things.
discussed it
necessary.
at the meeting as
We
to
did.
what route we were gonna go and how we were gonna approach it this year. But like I said, certainly if we do go the RFP route, they would be the evaluating committee for
Mm-hmm.
that.
There are no more questions. I'll make a motion to approve FY17 auditor's recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation for the auditors for, who are they? They've changed their name too. RPC, CPAs. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, this is the public hearing, review discussion of the 2018 interim budget draft. I don't know, who's, Michael Ann, going to do that? Are you going to take the next item? It's the draft budget, the interim.
I guess you can ask if there's anybody here. We are still seeking input for the final budget. I don't think there's anybody that wants to speak unless we have not brought to you, I mean, we just met last week on Wednesday, I guess.
Yes, I'm with you.
So we did provide you with the draft last week and did ask for input from the commission. I've spoken to a couple commissioners and also just with the city manager on some changes that we will make for the final budget, including those funding requests that you received this evening from those three entities. So that'll be very easy. I mean, I'll provide you with the final recommended budget at the May 23rd meeting, and then any changes that we make to that budget, you would be approving it, I guess, as amended to include.
Before the final. Is that what you mean?
Because on May 23rd, you will take action.
Yeah.
That will be the final interim budget to submit to the state. So any changes that we make on May 23rd will be noted that night and then you'll be adopting it with those changes. So if you're taking action on the museum, Main Street, and Arts and Humanities, those would be changes
Yeah,
to
right.
that budget,
Mhm.
because you won't take action until that night. So we'll make sure that we put those items on the agenda prior to the actual taking action on the final interim budget. And then, I don't know if there's, I think there's gonna be one other action item that you're gonna need to take, and that's gonna be the chamber memorandum of understanding for the tourism coordinator. So we need to make sure we have that on the agenda also. Now, that comes out of promotional.
Right, and it's in their budget.
It's in there, but we haven't. Lodgers tax meets next week, so we're gonna take their input from their meeting next week for the 2.0 fund promotional fund. That's gonna be plugged into the budget that I give you on May 23rd. And then the action that you take on the chamber's tourism coordinator funding. So, yeah, we still have a little bit of work to do
But I mean, it's in
on
their
this
budget.
Because I
It's-
haven't done anything to that budget. I'm
Oh,
waiting
okay.
for the input from the lodgers tax
Oh,
board.
you don't have that yet.
Right, so yeah, I have not touched the Fund 204, so it really, those totals from this year's budget, just kinda, we copied them and they carried
came over.
over, so yeah. You know, I do have a couple changes that we're gonna make. The fire chief, did say I need to increase our contract labor, line item. We contract out the medical director, but we also have an additional $500 for a pharmacist. I got with our payroll clerk, and she's given me the accurate longevity figures to plug into our personnel schedules. So I'll include that information. I don't think it's gonna be a huge adjustment, but I want it to be accurate. City manager and I are still kind of looking at our revenue projections a little bit. I will make a change to the budget so that what Waterworks budgeted for their residual payment, that we're budgeting the same amount. So I'll be making that change. Also, we talked about the lodgers tax non-promo fund tonight. I have a few changes to make on our insurance schedule. We did submit that earlier, I guess late last week. So I'll make those changes. We've had a few vehicles, new vehicles. We also sold a couple vehicles, so I'll make those changes. And then we also have an action this evening on the agenda. I don't think it'll change the budget, but on the fire station renovation. So depending on that action this evening, we can make changes if needed to that budget as well. And then, of course, the action that you took on the health insurance this evening, we did budget a 5% increase, so if it's only gonna go up 3%, I probably won't change those figures. We might just leave that little bit of cushion in there. And then we talked a little bit about capital outlay at the last meeting. The city manager and I want to make a recommendation to you for capital outlay, one-time hits to the budget that would come out of our reserve funds. So because it's not reoccurring, we do kind of have an ongoing list. We can't possibly fund all of them, but we would like to kind of prioritize them and do a few things in this next fiscal year.
Are you talking about the balance in the general fund when you say reserve fund?
Yes, yes. And then, of course, we did discuss that the airport matching funds, roughly about $80,000, is not in this draft budget. We are still working with state aviation to get some better figures on those two projects so that we can incorporate the matching funds as well into this budget. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, we still have a little bit of work to do here. So this evening, I'm not able to present you with a draft that reflects any of those changes, but I just kind of wanted to let you know kind of the running list of things that we still need to do. So I am still looking for any feedback of things that you've thought of since you've had a chance to review the budget, so that I can make a note and make sure that we incorporate that as well.
Just as point of discussion and question, if we were to fund the three that were in tonight's notice, at 90%, would that give us enough, a little extra cush, as opposed to 100% of everything they're asking if we were to do 90%?
Well, with the correction that we just made, I think we estimated the ending cash balance, if you fund them 100% of what they requested, would leave about 47,000.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, yes,
So-
instead of 13.
Yeah.
13
Instead
was
of
a little bit,
13.
yeah.
So that does, the 47,000 gives you a little bit more cushion. Now that is still dependent on our projections coming in.
Yeah, if we have any,
Um,
if you have any projects that you know that need to be funded that qualify. you
Now,
know.
we do anticipate Lodgers Techs this year. NRA has a big schedule this year. They even have some national shoots, I think, that they do every 2 years or this year. I don't think this year is a Dawson year, but reunion.
I think NRA 2 years ago, they had some of these events, and we really saw a lot of activity in town, and I think it's going to
Yeah.
be pretty strong from the NRA's perspective again.
Well, this weekend, along with the Lions, we had the 4-H shootout
There was a
there.
lot of
And
people
that-
there. I was
that
out
brought
there
them-
for
That brought a
that.
lot of them in town.
A lot of families, some
Yeah.
A lot of families. So,
Okay.
Scott, do you have anything else you want to add as far as changes that we've discussed or guidance that we need?
I think we'll take this time to really talk about those capital improvement costs and budget that. And as we've talked about, we have some grants in place. We were waiting for word on our municipal arterial program and a co-op grant application. We'll talk about that. I think, we did talk with Scott Beckman today, our COG representative. He's advocating for a housing planning study. He asked, would the city of Raton be interested in funding a portion of that? And it's really a regional housing plan study, so I'm not sure what our share would be out of that, but the magic number for a planning study is about 50K, and, it's regional, maybe more than that, so we have some portion of that. But in the past couple of years, we talked about a comprehensive plan update, and what we anticipated was if we budgeted $25,000 for comprehensive plan, we could find through CDBG or NMFA 25,000, about a 50-50 deal. So I think that gains you some points, is one of the advantages in a CDBG application. In past years, as far as a CDBG application, we're kind of borderline on that 50% low to moderate income, and so a few years ago, we were below the threshold of 50%. What that means is you have to collect a lot of data for a project that you submit. And if you do an infrastructure project that is limited to, the benefit is limited to a certain area, you collect data in that area. But if you do a project where it's more of a community-wide benefit, then you would collect community-wide data. That's a huge effort. And then we found out we're actually now over the 50% threshold, which means we don't have to collect that data. So we made preparations that we would go with a community-wide type of effort to bring that to the commission. And as that progressed along, we found out now we're not above that threshold anymore. Now we're below it. And so it really makes a difference in how we do it. But one thing in putting this together, and it's something that we talked about with the COG here again today, but if we collect that data, it's a huge effort, and it makes sense to do a localized project where we localize that data collection. But a comprehensive plan, up-to-date comprehensive plan, means you score better in a CDBG.
I thought you weren't even considered.
You can be considered, but
Okay.
you will basically be penalized if you're not up to date. Now, the city has a comprehensive plan, but it probably goes back 8 or 10 years with the last update, and a lot has changed in that 8 or 10 years.
And I
So-
think they think current is 5, I believe, if I
Right.
remember correctly.
Right. So it would be timely to do it, but like I say, it's, a budget impact of probably about $25,000. And we still have to find the matching funds, which I think we can do. But that's another thing to consider in areas we're talking about those things. And I think in the budget, that's what we're gonna spend our time looking at and finalizing with this. The health insurance now is a big component, it's fairly clear to us, we can proceed with that. And some of the other things, and as we talked about, personnel costs are really the biggest impact in the budget, and we've made a recommendation to the commission, but certainly the final word is with the commission, so.
Is there anyone that would like to, has anything to discuss about the draft budget? This is a public hearing. Okay, we'll go on. Deliberate and act on resolution 2017-23, budget adjustment number 12, fiscal year 17. Michael Ann?
Mayor and Commission, in your packet is, and actually I've given you a corrected copy, is a budget adjustment. It's all just line item adjustments. Mainly we paid our final quarterly workers' comp insurance payment, which is just an estimate at the beginning of the year, and then we pay it each quarter based on our actual payroll expense. So you'll see several line items there. We're just kind of shifting monies around, and just a few other line items. What I did was, you'll remember we had budgeted $12,500 for the Amtrak, is it Tiger grant?
Yeah.
And that didn't materialize, so that was just some money we had kind of in the budget. So I've kind of taken from that line item to make these line item adjustments. So that's my recommendation this evening. And then, as we talked at the last meeting, the boiler needs to be repaired at the Aquatic Center. So I was going to request to move some funds from one line item to the other for that equipment maintenance repair of the boiler. I have not talked to Jared, so I don't have an update on that as far as the status of the boiler, but
Yeah, we'll report back to you on the boiler, but
when the company's coming, or
yeah, we've got,
they
you know, we've
scheduled anything.
had an additional problem with the boiler. You remember back, I think in December, we had a problem with the boiler, and so we really want to do some evaluation on where are we going with this boiler. And of course, it's a major component, so we'll try to do some due diligence on that and report back to the commission on the status of the boiler.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2017-23, budget adjustment number 12 for fiscal year 17.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve budget adjustment number 12 for fiscal year 17. It's resolution 2017-23. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Deliberate and act on resolution 2017-24, disposal of surplus properties.
Mayor and Commission, in your packet, as you know, we've kind of been cleaning up surplus old computers. The municipal court did get some funding from the administrative office of the courts to upgrade their computer systems, so we'd like to dispose of, salvage the computers they have laying around in their office, and so I've listed those items. In addition, the fire department was approved several months ago to surplus and auction an old ambulance on the public surplus site. In addition to that, this particular gurney would be part of that to be auctioned off as well. So those, we're requesting approval to dispose of those 4 items. And of course, we would send to Department of Finance for their approval.
I'll move to approve disposal of surplus property, resolution 2017-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2017-24, disposal of surplus properties, which are the Gurney, HP computer and monitor, Dell computer and monitor, and a Dell computer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Deliberate and act on bid award for Fire Station Number 1 renovation project.
Evening.
Good evening.
2016, Fire Department applied for a state fire assistance grant, and the intention of renovating Station 1, station on corner Clark and Second. We were awarded a $100,000 grant. Along with that, it has to be a 20% match. That $20,000 was coming out of our 2016 fire fund money. Additionally, to fund the full project, we are earmarking another $50,000 from our 2017 fire fund grant allotment coming up to give us a total of $170,000. Last week, we had a bid opening. Unfortunately, I was at a planning and zoning conference, so I wasn't able to attend, but our architect, Mr. Dave Little with Alpha Sign, he was there, and could you brief us on how many bidders and prices and stuff, sir?
I applaud you for sticking around, Dave.
Yes.
The 3 bids were received. The low bid was from Stoughton Construction at $115,000. Next was David Parker Builders at $135,000. Colt Builders, or Colt Construction, was $181,000 and some change. All this does not include tax. The bids seem to be complete. In order, we're recommending award to Stoughton Construction for $115,000 plus tax.
Is Stoughton a local, are they considered a local contractor?
They're based in
Yeah, I
Albuquerque,
know
but you
they're
probably know they have a lot of family ties here.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
They were also the one that did the majority of the finish work on Station 2, the one that we're just about to open up.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the bid from Stoughton Construction.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to act on the bid award for the Fire Station Number 1 renovation project to Stoughton Construction. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Very much.
City Manager's report?
Thank you, Mayor. Try to be brief.
Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Mayor, I did attend the planning for infill development workshop that went on over the last 2 days. I know a lot of the commissioners did as well, and a lot of our partners that were in the meeting tonight did as well. And so there was a consultant team that came to Raton from Virginia, a couple of people, and a little background on the project. It's a technical assistance grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to Raton, and it funds the consultant to analyze Raton and come up with strategies for infill development. And so that's what the project consists of. And there also was a representative from Washington, D.C., from Environmental Protection Agency, and here the last several days, New Mexico Environment Department, Housing and Urban Development, and then our Council of Governments representative, as we had talked about. The project area that's being evaluated for infill development would generally be the downtown business area, the original town site, because we have a lot of vacant commercial buildings, and we have some housing potential as well in that area. So that's really what they had concentrated on. The activities consisted of a downtown tour that took place yesterday afternoon, where the team really evaluated and got a feel for Raton, evaluated the assets that Raton has. And then last night there was a public input meeting, and it was held at or the Castillo building. And I can tell you that it was standing room only. A lot of you were present to see that. And so great input from the community. We really had strong input, and that continued today, where the team and the public and some of the partners had spent most of the day in the Castillo building, and they talked about the establishment of achievable goals in the area of placemaking, and then promotion of Raton, spread the word, policies, they refer to that as setting the table, and then establishing necessary partnerships, which they labeled as matchmaking. So very productive the last couple of days. Thanks to the commission for all your help and input into the project, and we'll look now for a formal report from the consultant as far as recommendations and strategies for Raton. But I think there's some good stuff in there that we can implement quickly and take some actions that are not extremely expensive, low cost as a matter of fact, and can be actionable fairly quickly. So we'll report back to the commission and to the community on that. And I have one other item to report on, Mayor. I did attend the annual meeting of the New Mexico Watershed and Dam Owners Coalition along with Mr. Campbell. That was last Thursday and Friday in Albuquerque. And that was first of all, there was a presentation from Engineering Analytics on their work on the Lake Dorothy Spillway Improvement Project. Engineering Analytics did a great job of presenting that to a fairly large convention of people associated or interested with watershed and owning of maintenance of a dam. And then as well, we got a chance to meet with representatives of the Dam Safety Bureau and the state engineer. And I could tell you that Lake Maloya Dam is really looking like a priority as far as some improvements and to the state engineer, to the Dam Safety Bureau. It was listed in their bill for capital improvement funding through the legislature this last year. Didn't get funded, but it was established as a priority. And we talked about a system of evaluation of dams that's fairly new to New Mexico, where they have a new risk assessment, really identify where the risks are and try to put the priority into that. So we had a chance to talk to Dam Safety Bureau about how that process works, and we heard a presentation from Representative AECOM, an engineer from AECOM, which we're also using on Lake Maloya. So good information there. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Is there any other business to come before this body? If not, meeting adjourned.